In a world that's just swimming with information, why does the traditional classroom sometimes feel so, well, empty? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea that flips that whole script and is all about empowering students to actually teach themselves. I want you to picture this for a second. You're in a massive university lecture hall. There are hundreds of other students, one professor way down at the front. It's a scene we all recognize, right? But let's be honest, is it a scene that really works for learning anymore? I mean, this quote just hits it right on the head, doesn't it? We've all been there, or we've seen it. The lecture has become this sort of backdrop for our digital lives, not a space where we're actively engaged in learning. And look, the problem here runs deeper than just phones. The real issue is that the whole lecture model treats students like passive consumers. You're just there to download information, not to wrestle with it or challenge it or, create any knowledge for yourself. So, what's the fix? Well, that's where something called trace pedagogy comes in. It's basically a new blueprint for turning those passive lecture halls into these buzzing, active, collaborative workspaces. Okay, so what is trace pedagogy? It's way more than just, putting people in groups. It's a whole system, and it's built on a few really cool ideas. Students leaving these environmental traces for each other to find, intentionally embracing discomfort to grow, and taking some serious radical control over their own learning path. So that's the big idea. But how does this thing actually work in a real classroom? Well, the whole system stands on three interconnected pillars. Think of these as the building blocks. First, you've got the basic structure, which is the flipped classroom model. Then you layer on top of that the freedom of what are called self-organizing learning environments, or SOLs. And then you add the magic ingredient, this unique catalyst called Metamarks. So let's break that down. Flipping the classroom is a pretty simple concept. Students do the reading or watch videos before class. That way, class time is for doing stuff, not just listening. And then SOLs give them the freedom to decide how they want to tackle that material, letting them follow their own curiosity. And now for the secret sauce, the metamark. Okay, so imagine every single piece of work a student shares, a post in a discussion, a quick analysis, even just a good question. That becomes a trace left behind in this shared learning environment. It's not just about getting a grade, it's a building block that everyone else can use. I mean, just look at the difference here. A traditional exam is totally private, right? It's a snapshot in time. Metamarks, on the other hand, are public and they're continuous. They don't just measure learning, they actually create it, building this kind of amazing collective intelligence for the entire class. All right, this system sounds incredibly powerful, but here's the catch. It's not designed to be easy. In fact, its effectiveness kind of depends on one key ingredient: intentional discomfort. The philosophy behind this is really simple, but it's also profound. Think about it. If you're feeling comfortable, you're probably not learning anything new. Real growth only happens when you are pushing right up against the boundaries of what you know. And that process, well, it's just not comfortable. And hey, this isn't just a theory. Students who have actually been through this system are really honest about the struggle. They talk about feeling unsure if they're going to pass, or how long it took them to really get into it. That discomfort, it's a very real and a very necessary part of the journey. And to really put this philosophy into practice, there's this signature assignment called the SCARY project. The whole point is for each student to pick a big, semester-long project that genuinely pushes them way out of their comfort zone, something they're both excited about and, honestly, a little terrified to tackle. So to pull off a SCARY project, students really need to lean into three things. First, grit, that determination to stick with it when it gets tough. Second, a growth mindset, so you see challenges as chances to learn, not as roadblocks. And third, divergent thinking, which is all about finding creative ways forward when the path isn't obvious. Okay, so this system is obviously demanding for students, but what's often missed is that it places an equally massive demand on the instructor. This is what's called reciprocal intensity. From the outside, you might think the instructor is doing less work. I mean, there are no lectures to prepare. All the students really see is the 3 hours of class time they have each week. But that's just the tiniest tip of the iceberg. The real work, the other 90%, is all happening behind the scenes. The instructor is spending countless hours reading every single submission, analyzing class trends, giving detailed feedback, and then completely redesigning each class session based on the traces the students left behind. So just how much more work are we talking? Well, the professor who developed this system estimates it's about 3 times the prep time of a standard lecture-based course. You just can't phone this kind of teaching in. So you might be thinking, if it's this hard on everyone involved, why on earth would anybody do it? Well, because the payoff for the students who really commit to this process it's nothing short of transformative. I mean, just look at the skills that come out of this whole thing. These aren't just academic buzzwords. They are the direct result of wrestling with that scary project. We're talking about the most in-demand skills for the 21st century: time management, communication, collaboration, and even learning how to use AI as a creative partner. This quote from a student just says it all, doesn't it? The instructor isn't a sage on the stage anymore. They're more like a guide on the side, a mentor who's there to push you, to challenge you, and to help you grow. And here's the ultimate proof that it works. Students from this course get jobs because employers can see the real-world power of the skills they've built. Things like collaboration, adaptability, and critical thinking. They know how to solve messy problems. So it leaves us with a pretty big question, right? What could education look like if we intentionally designed it around the discomfort that comes with actively creating something new, instead of the comfort of just passively receiving information? It's something to think about.